Good evening. Welcome to the Usha Research Institute. Today we're going to take time out to clarify much of the misconceptions and misunderstanding about healing and nutrition. The Usha Research Institute has selected Dr. Sebi, your brother and servant, to come and deliver this message because there seems to be a little bit of problem with many of us that are looking for health and nutrition. We have visited many philosophies. We have visited the Ayurvedic, the Yin Yang, the macrobiotic, the allopathic, and the homeopathic. It seems as though we are running around in circles. So we took time out to clarify that which has been made difficult to understand or complex. Today, our talk, our lecture, and this particular segment is called The Reconnection. Reconnection to what? The reconnection to life. It has now been 400 years since society has been introducing a particular method of healing that have yet to complement us in a way that we would like for it to afford us. But as we all know, that everything begins and ends with God, the Creator. So one could easily see or understand that if God is the creator of the universe, then it behooves us to understand those things that are made by God. That seems to be some difficulty for many, because when we believe that the milk of a cow, an animal, is sufficient to afford nutrition to a human body, then one has to question that, because I am not an animal. That's common sense, I think. Animals produces milk for animal babies. Human beings, women, females, produces milk for human babies. But something happened to us that we elect to do just the opposite. Instead of us giving our babies the milk of a female human, we elect and chose to give our children the milk of an animal. I think that if we are to be scientific, intelligent, and lowest on the strata, to use our common sense, is there something wrong with that? And then, to compound the problem, is that the animal that we selected to afford us this milk is an animal that was made through the process of hybridization, an animal that is godless. God did not make a cow. You see why we are titling this subject as The Reconnection? How many of you sitting in the audience understood that or knew that? Well, I suspect that many of you doesn't. Why? Because in 1985, which is approximately 17 years ago, the USHA Research Institute took a position and showed the public of New York on WLI that carrots are artificial. Because they are artificial, they are unable to deliver the nutrition that one is looking for, because it is hybrid. You see, to understand nutrition, one has to use only those substances that are electrical. And the only substance on this planet that are electrical are the products that came with creation. Carrots, beets, rice, beans, wheatgrass, wheat. All these things are hybrid, plus much more. So what we are noticing is that there is gross misinformation when it relates to healing and nutrition. Because if in 1985 we didn't know that carrots was artificial, what else exists that we are unaware of? Well, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, there's much more. The reconnection does not allow for inconsistencies to prevail. For instance, if one is cosmically connected, meaning connected to the dictates of God Almighty, the Creator, one would never allow oneself to indulge in something other than those things that are of creation and Creator. You see, the things that God created, from the milk of a bison to the honey of a bee, to the substance of a burdock plant and the kalawala, which is one of the most powerful plants in the world. These plants are electrical, opposed to comfrey, opposed to aloe vera, ginseng, rose hips, and vitamins. You see, the difference is one is electrical, one is non-electrical. And the non-electrical contains what? Starch as a base. So you see, in the reconnection, we find that we begin to clarify much of the inconsistencies. We go into this little other part that is most unnecessary. In the year of 1985, the USHA Research Institute placed an ad in the Village Voice, the Amsterdam News, and the New York Post that AIDS has been cured by the USHA Research Institute. And we specialize in cures for sickle cell, lupus, herpes, blindness, cancer, insanity, impotence, and others. When the Attorney General saw this ad, he could not, under any circumstances, accept that this ad was representing something that was accomplished. According to him, this could not be true. But what the Attorney General of New York didn't know about those of us who are members of the USHA Research Institute is that we were aware that until that date of September of 1985, we were aware that until that date, September of 1985, there's no record. There are no records showing that someone somewhere on this planet had cured these diseases that before mentioned. So how could the Attorney General, Mr. Robert Abrams of New York, could have believed that this was possible? Now, it became a thing of confrontation, which was unnecessary. We said that this is the reconnection. But in the reconnection, we find carbon that we have yet to understand or to study carbon. We are told that melanin is what makes pigmentation the color that it is. We have been fed melanin like we have been fed protein, like we have been fed vitamins and enzymes. These are words that we have yet to dissect and to understand the meaning and their function. Well, in the reconnection, we find that carbon is the determining factor in reference to life. The higher the concentration of carbon, the higher the quality of life. When carbon is absent, life is also absent. Biochemistry supports our position. Biochemistry shows that carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, three combined, has to be present for life to exist. But instead of us learning about the function of carbon and iron, we've been fed vitamins, protein, enzymes, and melanin. But when the question is asked about these particular substances, that is very important. One of the most important questions that should be asked, are they electrical? People seem to think that this question should not have been asked. Shouldn't have been asked. Is it electrical? Well, science shows us that that question should be asked. Why? Because the human body is electrical. And any substance that would assimilate and render the good or nutrition that we are searching and pursuing, that substance must necessarily be electrical. And then, if it is electrical, it will have a definite amount of electrons per atom, separating one element or mineral from the other. You see, in nature, everything lives by its own kind, with its own kind. Remember, we talk about chemical affinity. So when we reconnect, we find that carbon is the determining factor. So this talk is the carbon papers. Science shows that without carbon, life is very, very poor or non-existent. And this is where the compounds of the Usha Research Institute comes into play. We carefully selected from the forest plants that are the highest in electrical vibration. And ladies and gentlemen, we said that God begins and ends with everything. This forces us and compels us to go to the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible teaches us in the book of Genesis that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. The book of Ezekiel 47:12 repeats the herbs are for the healing of the nations. We again go to the last book in the Holy Bible. The herbs are for the healing of the nations. So, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, God shows us in the first book, in the middle book, and in the last book, just in case that we overlook one, we will get it in the other. And if we miss the other, we get it in the last. So shouldn't the question be asked, are we willingly neglecting God and disobeying the mandate of God? Are we doing that willfully, knowing that this is one of the greatest violations? We talk about being obedient. Of course, it is obedience that gets us the thing from the Almighty that we so desire. But how many of us are obedient to that dictate? Very few of us. I hope that I'm one of them. It says in the Bible that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. Should we go back into history a little bit and revisit Mr. Hippocrates, the father of medicine? We're not going to mention Imhotep I because there's problem with Imhotep. The reason why we say that there's problem with Imhotep I is because he was the first to open the human body. If the human body was made to be open, it would have a zip on it. It doesn't have a zip on it. It was not made to be open. But we are going to overlook Mr. Imhotep I from Egypt in the first dynasty. We're going to skip over this man and we're going to go to Hippocrates. And maybe Hippocrates would shed light on what we are now expounding on. Hippocrates lived 365 years before Christ was born. This man cured every disease known to man. Hippocrates did. Long before Jesus was born, he was healing every disease. So when we say that only Jesus heals, no, we should say that only God heals. Because Hippocrates was here 300 years before Christ was born. But Hippocrates, like Jesus Christ, was obedient to the dictates of God Almighty. Hippocrates cured every disease by using what? Herbs or chemicals? We find that Mr. Hippocrates didn't use any chemicals because there weren't any at that time. He used only herbs. And at the time of Hippocrates, there were no such thing as aloe vera, comfrey, peppermint. There was already garlic. That was made by the Egyptians. But we know that by the Egyptian history, that those people were a little bit confused because they were a product also of hybridization and cross-pollination. Uneven yoke. History shows that the Egyptians were a crossbred of African, Persian, and Greek. that confuses things a little bit. You see, when things are complete, their molecular structure is complete, and they function in accordance with life. But when you interfere and bring three different vibrations together, that in itself shows us there is confusion. So Mr. Hippocrates obeyed laws of life and the dictates of God. He cured every disease. Now the question should be asked, if I'm a physician that went through the discipline and took the Hippocratic oath, well, if I am supposed to follow the precepts of Hippocrates. But why are we using chemicals today? Oh, that went by, and understandably so. All these violations in reference to healing and nutrition is occurring now. We're not eating electric food. We are eating things that were made by man in a laboratory. Since Mr. Hippocrates showed the world that the herbs really work, that particular modality of philosophy perspective continued until the year of 1729 by Mr. Claudio Galeno. He is considered to be the last of the natural scientists, and that is a fact. Since this man, Galeno, the Italian, what we find ourselves now using are chemicals that are inorganic and carcinogenic. So, ladies and gentlemen, what went wrong? What could have happened that caused us to disconnect? Why have we continued to practice such inconsistencies? Well, there is something that we just found out in the last 15 or 20 years. There is a substance that has been fed to our people in and out of Africa and probably around the world, because I see it in Asia, not only in Africa. I see it in South America. I saw it in Brazil. I saw it in Suriname. I saw it in Guyana. I saw it all through Central America. What we are talking about is cyanide. Cyanide have a tendency to interfere with brain waves, vibration, or hormonal message. Cyanide interfere with the hypothalamus. Cyanide interfere with the pituitary gland. Cyanide interfere with the central nerve system. Something had to interfere, because we are continuing to violate that ecclesiastical mandate. The herbs are for the healing of the nations. And those of us that may have read that particular chapter in the Bible, or those chapters, we think that what we see today around us in the gardens and the fields, that these things, since they are herbs, well, God made them. They must be good. So I'm going to use aloe vera to cleanse your intestines. I'm going to use comfrey to strengthen your bones. But ladies and gentlemen, little did we know that comfrey was made just like aloe vera was made. They tell us that comfrey has calcium. It is called knit bone, consound, has many names. But they never tell us that comfrey is responsible for severe anemia. Yes, it may work efficiently, probably in one part of the body and affecting a whole lot others, like garlic. Garlic is a substance that would definitely lower your pressure because it would eat up the cholesterol in the arteries. But did it tell us that garlic, not only does it remove the plaque or the cholesterol, it eats the membrane because garlic is unstable. It is another product that was made by man through the process of hybridization and cross-pollination. Garlic is a poison. Garlic has an oxide known as the oxide of allyl. This is why when you put garlic on a knife and you cut someone, the wound would never heal. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing forth the questions. We are asking the questions that were not asked, probably because of fear or whatever reason. But it is time. Disease is running rampant. And at the Usha Research Institute, we feel that if we have accomplished all of these things, such as the cure for AIDS, sickle cell blindness and others, then naturally, we expect for the rest of the healers to converge on this particular modality or research. And it's not forthcoming. So humanity will suffer a little bit longer. So we want now for you to understand that we are separating that which is hybrid from that which is natural. And thank you very much. And we will come to the next segment.